Good morning, class. I'm your teacher, Brittany, and I will be teaching you about writing today. So before we begin, I just want to say I'm so happy to see you all here. I'm really excited to be here. I love writing. I think that writing is a very fun way to both process information and think, but it's also a very fun way to express yourself so that the outside world and your friends, your family, and everybody that you meet can really get to know who you are inside. So today we're going to go through four different aspects. The first thing we're going to do is go through the mechanics of writing. So what that means is really how to, the very basics of it, right? You know a little bit, but we're gonna get a bit more specific. Then I'm gonna tell you about our assignment, but I'm not gonna tell you yet because it's exciting. At least I think it's exciting. And then we're going to have some volunteers share with the class some of their assignments. And then finally, we're gonna go over everything that we learned and discuss what we're learning next lesson. So let's go to the mechanics of writing, the first thing we're doing today. So how do you write? Does anyone know? And what do you guys know about writing? Yes, that's a very good point. You do have to typically use a pencil, a pen, a crayon, a marker, a felt. There's so many different ways. A laptop, good, iPad, and an iPhone. That's correct. You can use all of these. Good job, class. So yeah, basically, the most important thing that I think you should know when you're writing is it's really an extension of your mind, right? So you have your thought processes, you have your things that you think inside, that you keep to yourself, and then you have things that you say out loud, right? But then you have other things. You have things that you can write down on paper, and then someone else can see it. Much like making a painting, like an artist, and then you see the painting, right? Your drawings, your beautiful drawings. I saw that drawing the other day. That was a good drawing, and you had a great one too. Everybody in here is very talented when it comes to expression. I personally love writing. The reason why I like writing is because you really can take your inner, what's going on in here in your head and your heart, and you can let people know what's going on. So that's the main thing to keep in mind when you're writing is you're an artist, you're a creative, but you're also just being it's a very basic and helpful thing to know as a human being. Child, an adult, a teenager, in work later on in life, and some of you might even grow up to be writers like me and write books as well that get published. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through when you write, okay? What's the first thing you do when you write? Yes? Put your pen to paper. That's right. If you're writing, or that's right, your laptop, of course. Okay, so the first thing you need is, right, you need some sort of medium to actually do the writing. You don't just, for instance, okay, so when you're talking, right, if we were doing public speaking today, we would be using our mouths to express ourselves, right? But writing is really mechanical, and it's very much so your hands are going at it, and your hands are doing most of the work in that moment, but it's really, they're flowing from your mind. They're an extension of you, right? They communicate as well. So just like, much like my hands are teaching this lesson right now. So, all right, so let's talk about the basics of writing. When you use your medium, thank you for telling me that, when you use your crayon or your pencil or your laptop, normally you know what you're going to write about, right? Normally. This is not always the case. Sometimes you do free writing, which is actually really helpful. It's just where you kind of just write down whatever comes to mind, right? And it's like a brainstorm of an extension of your thought, a flow of thoughts that just keeps going. So what I want you to keep in mind when it comes to the mechanics of writing, before I tell you the assignment, don't worry, momentarily I'll let you know what the assignment is. And basically you need to really know this. Let's talk about creating a short story, okay? So you always, obviously, before you get to the fun creative part, you have to think about the grammar, the vocab, and your penmanship, because the point of writing is so that either you or someone else can see what you wrote down. So when someone else needs to see it, and even yourself, sometimes I write something and it's so fast I look like a doctor prescription, right? It goes so fast, it's scribble, and then I'm looking at it after like, what is this? I don't speak this language. But I know it was in English or French or one of the languages I speak, right? So what you need to know when you're writing is the point of putting it down on paper is so you can see it after, right? Much like a painting. So keep that in mind right before we get to this assignment. So then, we're going to do today, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the assignment now. We're going to create a short story. Okay, that's the assignment today. We are going to create a short story. Now, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Which when as we get older, when you get, high school, et cetera, college, you move on, in academia, and in life, you'll learn that we normally refer to that as an intro, body, and a conclusion, okay? In your beginning, right, your beginning of your story, the intro, you're introducing it. It's implied in the language. So you're telling us what's happening, right? Much like I started this lesson and I told you what was happening, today, you do a similar type thing. You introduce it, right? So it's like when you walk into a building, you walk into a room, a classroom, I said hi, I greeted you right away. It's a very similar thing. So we're creating the short story, and then we are starting with our beginning, right, which is our intro. Then we have our body, right, which is the middle. It's the real meat of it. It's the real story. It's the concrete substance of what we're doing. So that's the middle part, right? It's the story. What happens in your story? And then there's the end. How does it end? What does it conclude, right? How do we conclude this tale that you're going to share with us? But don't forget, when you're writing your story, you have to think about certain things when you're brainstorming, right? Character development. Who are your characters in your story? Is it fiction? Is it nonfiction? Fiction just basically means it's something imaginative that you thought up in your mind. Nonfiction really means it's something that actually happened in reality, right? Historical, autobiographical, like that, right? Either happened to you or someone else. So that's character development. Then we have setting, right? For instance, right now we're in a classroom, right? So the setting is a classroom. The wall behind me is yellow. That wall is white. There is a television screen for presentations behind me. And, these are the setting. These are the things that you need to know about the environment. And then my favorite part, which is honestly, I think, one of the most important things about anything you can write, is the moral of the story, right? We talked about fables the other day. Every single fable written has a moral to that story. There's another way to think of that, intention, right? Have any of you ever heard of what intention is? What's intention? Yes? Your mom told you? What does it mean? It's like the purpose, right? It's what you intend to do. Exactly. We all understand what I'm talking about by moral of the story? Perfect. Glad we did fables last week. We can move on. So here's your assignment. Should you choose to accept it, children? All right, you ready? Today's topic is, you have to write on this as you're writing a short story about this, silly cats. That's right. Silly felines, cats, all right? Here's some examples. The cats can be at home, on the internet, from a meme or something like that. From a movie, maybe it's a famous cat. Maybe it's a cat influencer like Mega Lambolicious Cat on Instagram. Or maybe it's a cat you saw outside. Maybe he was just wandering, doing his cat things. Or a cat in a zoo. Or it could be a cat in a pet store. I'm just giving you ideas. The cat could be anywhere. It could be on Mars if you want. Anywhere. The jungle gym? I don't know. It's your story. It can be imaginative. It can be real. Like I said, fiction or nonfiction. So fiction means imaginative, right? You create it. And then nonfiction means exactly like historical or autobiographical. So here's the assignment. You are going to make one single paragraph. This story is one paragraph, people. You have 4 to 6 sentences. That's it. I'm going to give you 20 minutes. 20 minutes to write this beautiful story, right? Make sure it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like I just talked about. Now, before we go on to the assignment, does anyone have any questions? Yes? You can use whatever pen, paper, whatever you feel comfortable with. I personally think pencil would be better. Exactly, because then you can erase it if you change your mind about, or if there's a grammar mistake. I encourage pencil, but whichever feels most comfortable to you is fine by me. No more questions? Okay, don't forget, you can always ask for my help while working on the assignment too, okay? All right, you guys have 20 minutes. All right, guys, 20 minutes is up. Who wants to volunteer to share with the class? And don't forget, we have the policy where I pick one student to read the story as well, right? So most of you go volunteers, but every class, we all know when it comes to sharing, I pick one too. And it's not a volunteer. You got me? So everybody has to be on their P's and Q's. We all must do this assignment. We must do it well. 4 to 6, right? Everybody got their, does anyone need more time? Okay, 1 more minute. You have 1 to 2 more minutes, okay? No problem. Absolutely. All right, do we have some volunteers? Great. We'll have Thank you, and thank you. And one more volunteer. Great, thank you. And who am I gonna pick? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. All right, so we're gonna go in that order, okay? Thank you all for sharing your stories. They were absolutely beautiful. I am astounded, I'm inspired, and I'm very, very, very proud to be your teacher today. Now let's conclude this lesson with a recap. What did we learn today, people? Writing. We wrote short stories about silly cats. These were the silliest cat stories I've ever heard in my life. You did a great job. The highlight reel for me personally was watching you guys work, because you seem to really enjoy this assignment, and I'm very proud of you for really getting in and digging in and your effort. That was really great. Before we conclude today's lesson, does anyone have any questions about what we learned today? Is anything unclear? Yes? It's a very good question. I'm going to get to that in 1 minute. Thank you for asking. Anyone else? No? Okay. So to answer your question, what we're doing next lesson is we're going to expand on those stories. We're going to add one more paragraph, just like we did today. We're going to do the same time next time, except instead of reading with the class, you're going to read with a partner. Okay, see you next lesson. Thank you. Thank you, class. You did great today.